hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you're all having a great day. It's Hump Day. It's a Wednesday. We're live here at RGS Exteriors. Love for you to give them a holler. We'll talk to Tim a little bit later on, who is here in the building. Not on a beach somewhere, but no, he is here with us, and we'll chat with him. But give them a call right now, 801-280-3110. That's 801-280-3110. Hans, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I just really want our listeners to fix the exteriors of their homes.
Yes.
So we can improve the overall look of Utah. Because you drive into some areas, and you're like, geez, this is right from the 1960s, 1970s. Guarantee it's got a disco ball in there.
Yep.
Probably some white pants. Maybe a little bit of
lava rock.
A little bit of lava rock. The lava rock's my favorite.
Panel walls.
The AF lava rock is my absolute favorite. But I know there's a lot of people out there that just hate their exterior, and RGS is going to get that fixed. In fact, oh man, I've got to talk to RGS. That, you know, every once in a while you walk outside on your home, and you'll see something. I'll give you a for instance, door jambs. The exteriors on door jambs. If you're starting to see separation of the wood and you're seeing paint crack off and you're having exposed bare wood on your door jambs, call RGS and they'll come out and they'll restructure those. They'll recaulk them. They'll get them finished up so that they look nice again. Like, there's all kinds of things on the exterior of your home that I know they're driving you nuts.
Yeah.
I know they are. You're seeing the soffit and the fascia. I always talk about this. The soffit is the under part. The fascia is the front part that's just below the roofing. And you'll see those things start to separate. You get some water damage, and maybe there's an issue with your gutters. Like, those things are so easily taken care of. It's just one phone call. Just call RGS. They'll come out to the house. They'll look at it, and they'll get it taken care of. I just want people to take care of their home.
Yeah, no doubt. And it all starts with a phone call, 801-280-3110. That's 801-280-3110. Can I tell you something I'm really embarrassed about, actually, is so I'm repainting some rooms in our house. And my wife had wanted the trim throughout the house repainted for a while.
That's a big task.
It is a big task.
Yeah, that's a big task.
And that's one that I didn't really want to do. But I had bought some paint a while ago, thinking like a year ago I bought it. And I'm like, okay, since I'm doing this, I might as well start tackling some of this other stuff. And I tried to open up the paint can, and it was like rusted in. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I saw the sticker on it, and I'd bought it 5 years ago. And I'm like, oh, she's been on me to do this for a while, and I have not done it.
I don't even think a paint mixer is going to help you there.
Nope. So we had to go get another can.
Are you really going to try to paint your entire interior trim? Because are you going to tape off, or are you going to try to cut in?
No, I'm going to tape off, because every time I cut in, I end up swearing up a storm and end up just retaping it. So.
Oh, you're a brave fella.
You did that once.
I did, in my Saratoga home.
Yeah, I remember that. It took like a whole Christmas vacation to do it.
It did. It was a major undertaking. It did look better. We had that, in 2006-ish here in the state, our interior designers were going with like a dark brownish trim.
Yeah.
And then like a tannish wall, and it looks terrible. And I just got sick of the dark brown, and I tried to transition to white. Well, dark brown to white on an interior, it's 3 coats.
Yeah.
And 3 coats cutting in, or even 3 coats after a tape job, is a pain, man. Especially, I was 215 pounds. I'd bend over and almost pass out. I get all the blood in my body rush to my head. My eyeballs are going to pop out. I feel like I'm going to vomit.
Sweating up a storm.
Oh, so then I got to stop and eat 4 packs of ramen noodles.
Oh, just to get the carb energy to keep going,
Kick a couple of fried eggs in on it, a little protein. So then I'm leaned over trying to puke up some Saimini. Yeah, terrible, man. Good luck.
Yeah.
You're a better man than I.
Well, let's wait until I actually get it done first. That paint can might be sitting for a while.
Well, at your current weight, you can maneuver pretty well.
Yeah. We're a little bit more lighter on our feet than we used to be.
I do remember asking my kids to help. That was no help at all.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm really bad at because when I ask my kids to help, they just annoy me, and they just get in the way, and you're just like, just get out of here and let me just do it because it'll be faster.
Yep. I asked Rock to mow. Do I have to bag it? Yeah, you got to bag it. Now, I don't want to bag it. Well, I'd want you to bag it. He didn't bag it. So now I walk through my grass.
Oh,
Shoes are all grass stained.
Yep.
Kicking up big clumps of grass that's, sat on top of grass.
Yep.
And I kicked that up, and now there's brown spots under the clumps. I'm like, doggone it. I'll just do it.
You got one job.
Go to Farmington.
Just go.
Go preach.
That's what he's planning on.
Yeah.
Just annoying you to the point where you're like, just get out of here.
He is. I do love that kid. Do love him. Did dominate him in a little bit of golf yesterday.
Oh, I never even knew that he golfed.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Okay.
And I reminded him of that.
Yeah. How was it for you? Because it's been a minute since you've been out there.
You know what?
That always happens, though. That first time up or the first game of the year, you always do well, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to get back into this.
I feel like I just put a $5 bill in the slot machine, and I pulled the handle.
Yeah.
And I hit triple diamonds. And it's like, oh, I got to come back now.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Now I got to come back with $800, and I got to gamble until I'm rich. You go out and golf a couple times, and you're like, oh, well, we just did a par 3, and I had my approach wedge and 60-degree out. And I was dropping it within 8 to 10 feet. I'm like,
you were just sticking them, huh?
Okay.
Did you say you used your putter from there?
Oh, Lloyd, the Texas wedge was hot yesterday.
I'm sure it was. It always is.
Yeah, Texas.
He's teeing off with that Scotty Cameron.
That Texas wedge was hot.
You can erase a 6-shot deficit pretty quickly with that Texas wedge.
Is that what it was? Was it 6 shots?
Yeah.
It was probably it was right around there.
He had a nice lead, and
I did have a good lead.
I went bonkers on the crown greens.
Oh boy.
But I also happened to take a boyfriend of one of my daughters out.
Oh.
That was talking a big golf game.
Oh, and you humbled him a little bit too, huh?
Yeah, I did. A nice slice of hummer pie. And we had snacks on the line, so he had to buy me snacks.
And we're probably not talking...
we're talking, a bag of jerky, which runs you $20-something.
Yeah, $20 these days, yeah.
A bag of my holiday popcorn, which is
nice.
$2.50.
Yep, you get 2 for $5.
And then the 2 for $5 on the monsters that you so kindly served me up today. So it ran him close to $30. Hey, look, dude, he didn't put
Hey, look, if you want to play, we're going to play.
He didn't put a price on the snacks. He didn't specify.
Just said snacks.
Okay, underneath 12 ounces of jerky, please.
The first time Hans and I ever did shows, we did a wager, and I think there was like a shrimp or lobster dinner we put on it. I don't remember what the bet was. Or maybe I think it was a steak dinner. And I bet all the time, and sometimes people ask to pay up, but more often than not, they're like, especially at that point, I was making no money. I didn't have $1 to my name. But I'm all, whatever. He plays for the Blaze, he'll do a fill-in show, and then I'll never see him again. And what's the likelihood? You won the bet, and you tracked me down. And sure enough, we went to, what was that steak place over by Trolley Corner?
It's Fleming's.
No, it wasn't quite that bad.
Oh.
It was one of like Texas or.
Oh, Rodizio.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Hans made me pay. And he was not going to let me off the hook on that one.
Well, you were my idol at that point.
Oh, okay, stop it.
And I thought for sure you were worth millions. I'm like, what's a steak dinner to him? I'm just a hungry football player. I need sustenance.
Yeah. My wife's like, boy, that Capital One is not hanging in there real well right now. And I'm just like, please clear.
What would you rather, though, paying up on that steak dinner or having an Avy that says BYU softball play-by-play?
Considering the bill at the time, I would probably taken the Avy.
Really? Yeah. Anyways.
No, it was all good. All right, Hans and Scotty, we got a busy show for you. Of course, it's a Wednesday, which means Kurt Helin's going to join us coming up at 1:05. We'll talk some college football with Bryan Fischer coming up at 2:05. So let's get to it. Starting lineup right now, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Hans and Scotty G.
Let's go.
The lineup is set, and it's time to kick off the show with the biggest topic of the day. This is the starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It is your starting lineup, all brought to you by Mountainland Supply, where the pros go for plumbing, landscaping, agricultural irrigation, all the safety equipment, tools, and a whole lot more. Find a location near you at mountainland.com. That's mountainland.com. All right, Hans. I don't have a dog in this fight when it comes to the NBA playoffs. I don't really care who wins. I got a little affinity towards the Timberwolves because Rudy's there and Conley's there. I like those guys. I want them to be successful. But you got the Pacers up 3-1. And now you have, of course, tonight you'll have the Timberwolves and the Thunder with the Thunder up 3-1. We might have 2 5-game series and no drama whatsoever. And that's all I want. I want to see some fun basketball. I want to see some Game 7s. We might have to wait and hold out for the NBA Finals for that because I don't think we're getting that in either one of the conference finals.
And it won't happen in the finals either.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right.
OKC will either sweep or go 5. So I think that the drama is all done with, and we're going to see a couple of Game 5s at the best. Did a little homework on this. Guess how many times in NBA history teams have come back from a 1-3?
In NBA history.
So that goes back to the 60s. 1968 is the first 1-3 deficit that was overcome.
All right. There was one in 93, 94. Obviously, we know about LeBron. But then Golden State did it to Oklahoma City the series before in the Western Conference Finals. I'm going to say give me 10.
Very close. 13.
Okay.
Only 13. And the Utah Jazz happen to be on the butt end of one of those 1-3 deficits.
To the Clippers. The Nuggets.
The Nuggets.
Right. Nuggets, right.
In 2020.
Clippers, they were up 2-0. Nuggets, they were in the bubble. They were up 3-1.
So with the Nuggets in the bubble, it was Denver won Game 1 in overtime.
Yeah.
The Utah Jazz reeled off 3 wins, including 2 blowouts. And then in Game 4, it was a 2-point. I think it was 129-127. After that, Denver reeled off 3 straight. Incredible wins, including the one in Game 7.
Yeah.
To come back from a 1-3. And then Denver did it in the same year, twice.
The next series.
To the Clippers.
Yep.
They were in a 1-3 deficit to the Clippers. You talked about the 2016 Warriors. They did it against the Thunder. 2015 Rockets did it to the Clippers. 2006 Suns did it to the Lakers in the Western Conference first round.
Was there I want to say a Houston-Phoenix series in the early 90s?
In the early 90s, 1995, Houston did it to the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference semifinals. 1981, Celtics did it to the 76ers. But everybody needs to understand that NBA postseasons have tweaked a little bit. They've run 2-2, 1-1-1s, and they've tried different formatting. So it's hard to get specific on the likelihood of anybody coming back. But I look at the 2-3-1s that we're currently staring down, and I don't think there's a chance in hell either one comes back unless we get complete and crazy conspiracy theories of you have to have New York in the finals. You cannot have the Pacers and the Thunders in an NBA final. It is television death. It is TV purgatory. Indiana and OKC, it's television. Is that not television purgatory?
That's about as close as Siberia as you're going to get.
Yeah. Instead of having New York find their way mysteriously coming out of a 1-3 deficit, and they go on to win 3 games. Look, if we've ever thought that the league was fixed at all, whether it's the NBA lottery, which we just saw the Utah Jazz plummet in, or it's any other thing that you have conspiracy theories on, if the Knicks don't come back and find a way out of this series, then you can't convince me on any conspiracy ever in the NBA.
No. And that's, look, I mean, frankly, we're seeing a Knicks team play only their, the first Eastern Conference Finals since the 90s. And I had a conversation. It was the day after the NBA draft lottery. I got a phone call from a former Jazz official who told me, he's like, I know you want to go on the air, and I know you want to say that it's fixed. He said, it's not. He goes, as much as I want it to be, as much as I think it is, and as much as we felt like at times when I was helping out with the Jazz, like it was up against us, he goes, I know too much of the back workings and how things go to think that it's rigged. And the fact that the Knicks aren't relevant, Boston just got bounced, and we are probably going to see in Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, NBA Finals, probably gives a lot of credence to that. Look, I love to go conspiracy theory. I love it. I would love nothing more. And you're right. If the Knicks reel off 3 in a row, then we can go down that path. I just don't see it happening. Now, the only thing that the Knicks have going for them is that they got, if this series does go 7, they got 2 out of 3 at home. But home court really doesn't seem like it matters much in that series.
No, we're looking at it SGA versus Halliburton finals.
Yeah.
And
as much fun as that is from a basketball standpoint, those guys aren't necessarily household names yet. Now, they're there. They're right there on the cusp, especially SGA. But Halliburton was just a few weeks away, removed from being talked about by his peers as the most overrated player in the league.
Yes, he was. Which I do think has ticked him off.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think that article was probably a thorn underneath his foot.
And I respect the hell out of him for it, too.
Yeah. To fight the way he's fought and get himself to a 3-1 advantage over New York, it's pretty impressive. But I do think OKC finishes things tonight with Minnesota. I think we're one day away from seeing Indiana finish things with New York, and I think that we will see an NBA Finals in 5 games max. OKC is just too hot. The pick and roll and connection that SGA has with Holmgren and that he has really across the board, it's just undeniable, and it feels unstoppable at times. And then what Oklahoma City has done defensively with Hartenstein and Holmgren, what can you say? They take care of any big man, including Jokic to a certain degree, to get out of that Denver series. It really came down to what they did. Now, OKC has done a lot to try to build things defensively, and it's working.
So if you look at your last NBA Finals winners, so Golden State went on that run where they won 3 out of 4. But you go back to 18-19. Here's your winners. The Raptors, the Lakers in the bubble, Milwaukee, Golden State, Denver, and then Boston. And then you'll have a new winner this year that'll either be the Pacers, but most likely Oklahoma City. So let's just, for the sake of argument, just say Oklahoma City wins the NBA Finals. That means you have Oklahoma City as a winner, Denver as a winner, Milwaukee as a winner, and the Raptors as a winner. Those are 4 out of the last 7 NBA Final winners. And those aren't necessarily, like, Toronto's not a small market. Toronto's massive, but it's not considered an NBA hub. Like, free agents aren't dying to go to Toronto because of the taxes and the fact that it's Toronto. Nobody really wants to go play in Toronto, but they've got an NBA championship. Milwaukee, small market, does. Denver, again, not necessarily a small market, but not considered a basketball hotbed. And then either the Pacers or the Thunder.
No, that's a good point. It makes you feel like it's very possible, right?
Yeah. So if I'm a Jazz fan, I'm like, we got to get this thing going because there is a window here where teams are able to take advantage of it.
There was.
There was.
I think the window's closed for the next 5 years.
With Oklahoma City?
Yep.
I'm going to say 3 years before that thing breaks up.
What breaks it up?
The money. I just don't think they can afford to keep a good chunk of them.
So you think Chet gets too expensive?
I think Shai Gilgeous is going to get really expensive and then price everybody else out.
We went through the numbers yesterday. What was Shai at yesterday?
Well, Shai's only at like 38 right now, but he's going to go crazy
58,
supermax.
58 to 62.
I think he'll be pushing 70.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'll be the highest paid player, and it's going to get nuts for him because he's got the MVP, he's got the first team, he's got all those things that escalated.
At what point do we see a heightened level of intelligence from an NBA roster? And a guy like Shai saying, how much money do I need? But how much glory do I want?
Yeah.
When are we going to see it? Where a superstar that could max it out, instead of his ego getting involved in being like, I have to be seen on an Olympic roster as the highest paid with the most money, and it's all about, instead saying, I want to Tom Brady this thing. I want 6 rings over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And if I can keep Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, if I can keep Hartenstein, if I can keep Lou Dort, which we went through their numbers, we're talking about, right around 22 to 26 years old, all those guys.
Yeah.
If I can just keep this team financially viable and take at what point will we see that?
I don't think you're going to in the NBA. Because it's not part of the culture. In the NFL,
it's
it is.
All ego,
I mean,
man.
how many times do we see Tom Brady take less? Patrick Mahomes restructure a contract. Now, he's still getting his money, but he's going to restructure it and back in some of the money or whatever the case is. They can do a lot of stuff to kind of fudge the numbers so that he can provide a little bit of a cushion for the team. In the NBA, there's just none of that flexibility.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If I'm an NBA owner, you've got 14 personalities to manage. You've got 8, 9 personalities that you've got to manage if you want to be a championship team. If I was an NBA owner, I would pull in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'd sit him down and say, Shai, I just want you to understand. Do you understand you know my worth? Yes, sir. You're worth $32 billion. That's right. I'm worth $32 billion. And I've got about 6.5 of that's liquid cash. It's nothing to me. When you're done and retired, son, I will make you more wealthy than your mind could ever imagine. But in this moment, what I need you to do for me is let your ego fall down, and we'll build egos with championships. But I'm going to give you a handshake deal. We'll work a contract underneath, away from the game. We'll work a contract. I will make you a $500 millionaire cash. But I need you to do this for me because we got to sustain this for 10 years. And somehow we got to build an NBA dynasty, and these dynasties fall apart too quick now.
I mean, look at Boston. Boston's going to get blown up this summer.
They're done.
Yeah.
Brown is on his way out, and Tatum is I don't even think he'll come back next year.
No, he won't be back.
If he does come back, what are we talking?
Yeah. March?
I mean, late February at the very soonest.
I don't even think – I think All-Star break might be too
So Boston –
aggressive.
And, I look at Cleveland, and I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to get better?
Yeah.
You're freaking max on cash. What are you going to do to get better? And it's like, man, if I could convince a guy to set his ego aside and let's do this as a team where I've got a young group like this and I still have major assets.
Oh, yeah.
Oklahoma City is not done maxing out that Paul George deal that they signed in 2019. They're not done. They still got 2 first-round picks off this thing that they can move and maneuver with. I just am waiting for the time that somebody does it, Scotty.
Yeah.
And we see somebody just say, and by the way, when we do see the superstar say, I know I'm up for a Supermax. I know that I could get $68 million. I'll be taking $32 million. And we're going to be working deals with Chet Holmgren. He's not going anywhere. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's not going anywhere. Jalen Williams, he's not going anywhere. Man, I would salute that team.
By the way, if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he can right now this offseason sign a 4-year, $293 million Supermax. But if he waits a year.
4 years, $293 million.
Yeah. If he waits a year, he can next offseason sign a 5-year, $380 million Supermax, which will give him $76 million per year.
What is it per year? The 3 and 280. What is that?
The 4-year, 293. 293 divided by 4. I mean, that's not chump change. That's $73 million.
We're talking about NBA players being in the $70 million year mark.
Yep. Like, we're not too far off from somebody making $100 million a year.
What was the Albatross contract?
Oh,
with AK?
With Andre Karolinko?
Wasn't it in the
I think it was
20s?
I think it was like 21, 22 million, something like that.
That was the Albatross.
Yeah.
That was only in like 2006.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. We will have in the next probably 3-4 years a $100 million a year player.
Yeah, people are like, well, I think that the NBA is struggling.
NBA's doing all right.
Well, I think that the NBA is going through hard times. No.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, tickets available now for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games opening ceremony coming up June 6th at Southern Utah University, featuring live music, biggest fireworks show in Summer Games history. Tickets available at tbirdtickets.com. Excited to get down there, too. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, Scotty.
Yes?
How aggressive do you think Yormark is being right now? As he's watching the SEC and Big 10 conference meetings. Look, you and I watch all sports news all the time, but you can't look at sports news now without hearing the SEC and the Big 10 whining, complaining, plotting.
Oh, yeah.
And we are just a mere 3-4 years away from major change.
Yeah. Brett Yorkmark is in a situation now where he and I forget the name of the commissioner of the ACC, but those guys have to make their money right now. They have to earn their money. Now, George Kalafkoff was a disaster, and Brett Yorkmark ran circles around him and embarrassed him and essentially put the Pac-12 out of business because he was so far superior than George Kalafkoff. So Yorkmark won that battle easily because he was cutthroat and he was smart and he knew how to take decisive action and get school presidents in his corner and say, all right, let's go. Let's do this. He is up against a much different foe in Greg Sankey in the SEC. And this is where Brett Yorkmark is going to have to do everything in his power to keep pace with not just – I think the Big Ten's a powerful conference, make no mistake, but they're still on the coattails of the SEC. This is the SEC's world, and the Big Ten's fortunate that they get to hang tight with the SEC.
Yeah, because you need more than 16 teams.
Yeah, because they are a monster, make no mistake, but they're not SEC. And Greg Sankey is the most powerful man behind who's the commissioner of the NFL? Why am I spacing his name? Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is the most powerful man in sports in America. I think Greg Sankey's number 2.
Yeah.
And Brett Yorkmark has got to be as aggressive and sly and underhanded as he possibly can be. Any of those mobster vibes that you have with your connections, you got to put those in full force because you're talking about trying to not just stay alive. You're going to stay alive in some way, shape, or form, but find a way to keep your conference with as close to those other two as you possibly can.
Well, I think that you better be in cahoots. The guy's name is James Phillips. He's the ACC commissioner.
Yeah.
You better be in cahoots with James. You better be on the same page. And realistically, this is where people get confused because people think, Well, you got to do it for the betterment of college football. It'll never be for the betterment of college football because when you boil things down, it'll always go to the betterment of an individual. So if you were to boil it all down, you just mentioned who the most powerful man is in college sports. It's Greg Sankey. If you boil it down, Sankey's going to do what's best for Sankey.
Yes.
Now, he's looking at it like, well, what's best for me? All right. My product, which is the SEC. That's the best for me. So I got to do the best for my product to do the best for me. Because it always comes back in big business like that, big sports business, it always comes back to me. How can I secure my spot? How can I make sure that I'm still making $28 million a year? How can I ensure that my product continues to promote me? Why do we know Greg Sankey's name? Because he is one promoted product. Now, he's done a good job. He's built what the SEC is, and they included some new teams, and I think that they found some success on those additions, and I think it looks good for the SEC. But to me, if I'm Yormark and Phillips, I'm looking at each other like, okay, what can we do? Because I'm trying to cannibalize you. You're trying to cannibalize me. Now, what can we do as a coupled power to try to build, taking what would be an A4, 4A, or the group of four, or sorry, the higher class of the four, and build it as the higher class of three and compete with the SEC and the Big Ten? I think that there's a 20-team product that you could put together combining ACC and Big 12 teams that would be very, very comparable to the Big Ten.
I agree.
And that product would include Miami, Clemson. There's only two teams in the ACC that have won national championships, Clemson and Florida State.
Yeah.
Miami is a big product, and Miami has always – but I don't think Miami has a national championship in football.
Not recently. They got one in like 01, 02, but not in the current BCS world that we've lived in.
Oh, did they get one back in
Yeah, Willis McGahee. They beat Ohio State.
Okay.
I think it was a Fiesta Bowl.
So they still have one within recent memory.
Yeah.
So it would be Clemson, Miami. It would be NC State, North Carolina, in my opinion, because you got to kind of think basketball terms as well. I would take Virginia. I would probably involve Cal and Stanford because I do want a little bit of the California market. And then Florida State.
You're not keeping Duke?
It depends on how relevant I want to be in basketball. If I'm like, man, I've got to build this as a football and a basketball dynasty.
You're not getting North Carolina without Duke.
Then, maybe if
I think NC State gets shown the door.
But that excludes SMU, Syracuse, Louisville. You got to start to really look at it. Pitt, Boston College. You got to start looking at it and say, okay, well, what's our additions? What's our subtractions? Because we got to build a 18, 20-team league here. And then you look at the Big 12, Arizona State, BYU, Colorado. I would probably keep the Texas teams, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech. I'd probably keep the two Kansas teams, Kansas State, Kansas. I'd keep University of Utah. And then, it's like, okay, do we want the Florida market? Are we interested in Oklahoma? We might exclude UCF. We might exclude Oklahoma State. We might exclude Houston. But we'll keep the four corner schools. We'll try to include some California. We'll keep some of the big powers that have won championships. All I'm doing, Scotty, is painting a picture of how freaking aggressive you got to get.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, is why we're seeing BYU be so aggressive financially, because BYU wants to send a message to Yormark, to Phillips, to Sankey, and to anybody else that's looking, saying, we want to be in it. We want to compete. We're not going to try to penny pinch. We're not trying to save money. We want to win championships. We'll spend to do it. And BYU, by the way, is under everybody's skin, because you just saw Oregon yesterday lose a big-time recruit to BYU, 4 or 5-star center.
Yep. Who had committed to Utah, then to Oregon, or committed to BYU, then to Oregon, now back to BYU.
Yeah, it gone back and forth a few times. And BYU finally lands him. Oregon has got to be looking around like, that's a financial loss.
Even signed on the dotted line with Oregon. He signed.
Yeah. By the way, when we have a beat writer, I believe a beat writer from Texas, was it last week, who said,
yes,
we're not spending like BYU is, that's Texas, folks. That's University of Texas making a joke about how they're not competing with BYU in terms of financial money that they're spending. Now, granted, that's towards basketball, but keep in mind, basketball and football, I mean, here's that cut. Listen to this again if you're a BYU fan, and just kind of think about what kind of a crazy world you're living in right now.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, they're not on the BYU level necessarily, let's say that, but after Mr. DeBansta. But, yeah, I think, this first year is going to be interesting. Sean Miller's bringing in a lot of guys that are two-year guys, right? They're guys with eligibility. That he's trying to create some.
But, I mean, that's a joke that he makes kind of just offhanded, but it's resonating. And, again, when you're talking about you hit it right on the head. When you're talking about this world, even if BYU, this spending spree is short-lived, it's a message to the world like, we're not messing around here.
That's what this is.
It's all this is.
Yeah, that's what this is. They just know how temperamental the future of college sports is. And what they want is people to recognize, understand, and include BYU in the logo and label. Because BYU is a very valuable logo. It is a very valuable university. Utah's become a valuable university. Going to a couple Rose Bowls and their recent success is big. That's why Utah's got to get back into it this year.
Yep.
Utah's got to be competitive again this year, and they know that. And I got to make sure that they take the steps to be competitive, because I'm just telling you, Phillips and Yormark, they better be on the phone together, because there's a chance that all except for a few get excluded if you don't find a way to get your foot in this door.
Yep.
And make it a valuable product.
Hans and Scotty, 12:51. What you may have missed coming up next.
Number one.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We talk about 3-1 deficits in the NBA. Well, last night, what you may have missed, the Edmonton Oilers got the 4-1 victory over Dallas. Now they lead that series 3-1.
That's at a 3-1?
Yeah. So that thing's pretty much over.
So you're saying Canada has a chance?
Yeah. But you got
they're not getting through Florida.
But here's the thing. Florida's up on Carolina, Game 5 tonight, with Florida leading that 3-1. So you assume Florida will probably finish business there, and then Florida will just run roughshod through Edmonton and tell those crazy Canucks to
Could you imagine?
Go back home, eh?
Could you imagine if Florida did it again? Just thumped the Canadian team and sent them home crying? I would not mind a Florida-Edmonton final. Not even in the least.
Yeah.
Every time Tkachuk goes back to Canada, goes back to Edmonton, he's going to hear it. Every time Edmonton comes into Florida, you're going to get the USA chance.
Yeah.
That happened. What series was that?
I can't remember, but again, it's if you're a player in the middle of this, you're like, hey, I'm Canadian.
That was Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
That was Florida Maple Leafs.
Or if you're, you're an American on the Edmonton team, you're like,
hey,
man, I'm an American.
I'm here too.
But nobody cares.
No, they don't.
It's Florida versus Edmonton. It's Canada versus the United States.
Give me that one.
Yeah. Well,
that'd actually be a great final.
Well, you're pretty close to it right now.
Yeah, Carolina was able to grab potentially the gentleman's sweep, and it looks like Florida should end it tonight.
Hans and Scotty right here on the Zone.
You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
That's right. Yeah!
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Kurt Helin's going to join us coming up here in just a moment.
Yeah, when you hear that music, you know you're going to get some good NBA insight.
You're going to get a good breakdown from Kurt Helin.
Mm-hmm. The best.
He is one of, if not the best, and we enjoy talking to him every week. Kind enough to hang out and slum it with us every week for about, 9 months out of the year.
Yeah. Yep. And every once in a while, he'll stop by Salt Lake and eat a Fat Boy and chill out and enjoy the culture here in Salt Lake City. We just don't get him here enough.
I wonder if I could throw a few of those ice cream sandwiches in with some dry ice, and it would make it to California still frozen.
Would you take some Fat Boys set on dry ice if we send them to you, Kurt?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Those things were fantastic. Yeah. And now that it's getting to summer, it's almost more of an appropriate season for them.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe February in downtown Salt Lake City outside, it still was good. But summer in Southern California, it'd be even a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. Summer anywhere. Ice cream sandwiches are a summer food, man.
Hans and I were just walking. We were walking into our remote today, and the weather's beautiful here in Salt Lake, and we're like, man, this is so much better than January, February. I got to imagine, there's some issues there in Southern California, but every day you walk outside, you're like, yeah, I can get used to this. Like that doesn't suck.
Yeah, look, I could complain that it's overcast and probably mid-60s today, and like that, dude, that's as bad as it gets most of the time. It's fine. It's the price you pay for living here. Like all the other expenses, that's the payoff. Is that it's really nice here, temperature-wise, and a lot of other stuff. But yeah.
Well, Kurt, I don't think we have enough conspiracy here in the state of Utah with the whole lottery issue that just went down. What I want to add on top of it is New York coming back from a 3-1 and finding themselves in the finals and just really pile up the conspiracies.
There you go. Suddenly all the calls are going Jalen Brunson's way. I think I think that they can I think they probably win at home, right? Like, don't you? Like, they're not going to –
Yeah.
They're going to come out with a lot at Madison Square Garden. But if you've watched this series, I just don't see how they put together 3 straight wins. They haven't been able to drag this game down into the mud enough like they need to. They can't win an up-tempo, free-flowing game. And that's what happened last night. I mean, they put up good numbers. Brunson had good numbers. Cat had good numbers. He and Anunoby and Brunson, Anunoby, and Cat, I think, had 80 points between them and pretty efficiently. But if it's free-flowing, the Pacers are going to – Tyrese Halliburton's going to tear you apart. He is a star in the making. I think this is his – for a guy who was at the end of the bench at the Olympics and didn't get a lot of pub there and stuff, like, this is his coming-out party. Like, in this kind of setting, he thrives. And that was about as good a game as we've seen all playoffs last night.
So when you and by the way, condolences, because the likelihood of you eating dinner in New York City is diminishing very quickly. I
will send Lloyd texts of me eating shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's. And, you can.
You get those sinuses cleaned out at St. Elmo's, but that's about the best we can do for you.
Yeah.
But
that is a spicy shrimp cocktail. You're not kidding, man.
Oh, you know what? I bought some of that sauce when I was out there, and I still have it at home. And every now and then, when we have friends over or something like that, I'll be like, "Hey, why don't you try some of this? See what you think." And just seeing that initial reaction when that hits somebody is worth the price right there. There's no doubt.
Remind me not to come over to your house.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so when you look at this Pacer team, assuming they beat New York, assuming they go to the NBA Finals and up against Oklahoma City, do you see them giving Oklahoma City much of a challenge?
Not really, just because they can't get enough stops. And I think they're going to do a much more balanced, better defense. That, like, they're not going to get the easy turnovers and runouts that they can get against the Knicks at times. And it's just. What you have to give the Pacers credit for is a relentlessness on offense, right? Like, they just keep coming at you. They just keep running their stuff. They're deep enough that they can keep going like that. Oklahoma City just does that better. Like, they are also deep, and they roll out. Hey, Lou Dort's looking a little tired. We'll just put Alex Caruso on you for a while, and then when he's a little tired, we'll put Jalen Williams on you, and Like, they can just keep doing that in a way, and matchups that in a way that I just don't think – I think it's trouble for the Pacers. I think the style of play is just not going to work for them in that series.
So we've seen, Andre Iguodala in the past with a Finals MVP, and we've seen some unusual characters maybe here and there. Mark my words, if the Pacers make it to the Finals, which it looks like they're going to do, and they find a way to a championship, I think Pascal Siakam is going to be your Finals MVP. Talk about his performance in the postseason. I think it's just been eye-popping.
He had a really good series and run when he got the ring in Toronto, but he was overshadowed because that was Kawhi Leonard being the MVP, but also that team had Kyle Lowry and all this other depth. Here he was. The moment he went to them, the reaction around the league was like, oh, that's a perfect fit. Like, he just is going to be the kind of Swiss Army knife next to Tyrese Halliburton and the shooters they have, and Nembhard and all the other guys. Like, this is the guy who, hey, we need more defense on the wing, and we need somebody who can defend. Well, he can do that. You need some shooting. You need somebody who can take over secondary shot creation. He can do that. His ability to do a little bit of everything is a perfect fit for them, and he's really shined in this postseason. I think sometimes he gets left off of that all NBA level conversation because sometimes his numbers aren't quite as eye-popping, and he's just, because he can do a little bit of everything, sometimes it gets lost how great he can be in the right situation. Yeah, if they pull that off, I don't think you're wrong, Hans. I think past Finals MVP. If you are a betting man looking for a place to make money because you're not going to make it on betting on Shea, like, that's not the worst one out there.
Kurt Helin joining us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, for his weekly conversation. All right, so we talk about trends in the NBA, and there was the super team trend there for a moment. Now it seems like get yourself a star and then surround him with as deep of a bench as you possibly can, and then go 8, 9, guys deep. Adelman today in the Nuggets locker room clean out said that he wants a 9, 10-man rotation. Is that the new wave of the NBA?
Yeah, they all want a 9-10 rotation, man rotation. It is the new way of the NBA, but I think this is more than just a stylistic thing. This is something that's forced on them by the CBA. In an ideal world, you'd like to be able to put together, 3 stars and surround them with good talent. But what you end up with is, Phoenix was a bad chemistry thing, but you still end up with like the problem of, hey, we got our stars and we can't put anything around them. And you're better off having one superstar, in the Jokic kind of model and a bunch of good role players. You're Jamal Murray's making max money, but Jamal Murray's and Aaron Gordon's in their case. But you see it, I think, with, like you said, these teams right now where it's not necessarily – it's about having some depth rather than just all the big names in one place, because you pretty soon you're not going to be able to afford to be able to do that. Even in Oklahoma – look, we're talking about it with Boston, right? Boston's going to have – Drew Holiday's probably gone this summer. Wherever he lands – he's probably gone, and they're probably going to have to shed 1 or 2 more guys because you just can't keep these rosters together like that anymore for any length of time. So forced on them or not, I think that becomes the model, which is get your superstar and then surround them with quality, smart role players. Because once that, even in Denver, like, how much did they miss Bruce Brown? How much did they miss some of those some of the quality role players they could put around Jokic, as that has had to fade, it's been hard for them.
How often do we see an NBA superstar take any type of financial break to give his team an opportunity to sign quality talent around him? I do think Rudy Gobert made some type of contractual deal in an attempt to make it a little bit better for his team, but how often do we see it from like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or some of these other superstars?
It's really rare. And we've seen it. Brunson was the big one who left a lot of money on the table. There's a lot of guys who have left even like LeBron and Wade left a little bit on, like guys have left a little on the table. A few, hey, if I take 3 or 5% off and we can get one more guy, but it was usually to go get a superstar. It wasn't to kind of, hey, let's go get Mikal Bridges and really add depth to that roster. But I'm curious, as you bring it up, it's something some agents have discussed, which is the money is for a superstar now is so crazy and only going to get crazier with this new television deal and the money coming in. That are you willing to give some of that back to be on a winning team or to put yourself in a place you want to be, a city or, back home or whatever it might be, or to be with a certain coach or whatever? Are you willing to – the money is now so life-changing, but even if you took like Brunson did, he's still getting, 40-something million a year. Are you willing to say that's good enough to be where I want to be or playing with who I want to play with?
So Shams dropped the line yesterday that this offseason could be, quote, the craziest NBA offseason in history. Are you hearing that? Is that just hyperbole, or is there a chance things could get really weird this summer?
Oh, things could get really weird this summer. Giannis is still looming out there as kind of the big thing, but Kevin Durant will be on the move. Like we said before, Drew Holiday and some of the other Celtics are going to be on the move. There's going to be really good players available, and maybe more than that. Shams is certainly well connected. He is, in no way is he, he works for ESPN. They lean into hyperbole a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that.
Once or twice, yeah.
But that said, this does. Even lately, you're just seeing less at the trade deadline. It's been harder to pull. Usually you see big moves right before the season or early in the season lately. It hasn't been as much at the deadline. And then you get all the shifts in the summer. And I think this summer it's going to see a bunch. And the question is just how many. Giannis obviously being at the top of the list. We don't know what he's going to choose yet. But if that domino falls, then a lot of dominoes fall.
So with that being said, Scotty and I talked about this yesterday. It's hard to find a big party like that without Danny Ainge at it, wanting to get in on the action. Do you expect to see some big action from Danny Ainge?
We'll define big, but yeah, I do. I think, look, the big trade, if you're building for the future, and this isn't a secret, like as much as Lauri Markkanen's been great there, whoever you draft at number 5 is not on the same, and Kessler and everybody, the good young players, you got Filipowski and everybody else, who I did vote for all rookie. I know he didn't make it. I was kind of surprised. They're just not on the same timeline. So once you start to get the star or use him to go up and go get that star higher up in the draft, I would be surprised if he's not looking to do something like that. Just because when we're talking about all the guys being moved and teams looking for guys who can do a little bit of everything, well, Lauri walks in the door and does that for you. Like, he's just fantastic. So as much as I know he's been popular, he's not on the timeline. So I expect a lot of moves this summer, more setting yourself up for the future. But yeah, I expect Danny Ainge to be in the middle of it, and probably based on history, getting a really good deal.
Yeah, well, we can certainly hope. There's no doubt about it. How much, like, when you look at the Jazz maybe trading up to get to that number 3 pick, or David Locke threw out trading number 5 for Zion Williamson, I mean, are those things that you think could be at play for the Jazz? Or when it's all said and done, do you think they selected number 5?
I think they end up picking, but I think that you'd be silly not to. Like, the smart move is to at least kick the tires on a bunch of stuff. By the way, I've heard Zion isn't going anywhere. I've been told the vibe is different under Joe Dumars. I guess every front office thinks they can change it. I'd change him, change the whole dynamic there. But good luck with that. But I've heard he's not going anywhere. But that said, I would explore trading the number 5 pick for somebody who could really help you down. Again, you've got to think about the future timeline and you're on, but you're not going to turn this thing around into a team that contends next year. But for the right player in the right situation, and somebody who has potential and maybe hasn't lived up to it yet, I'd take that shot.
Kurt, do you look at a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and say he would have became this if he stayed in L.A.? Or do you look at his circumstance and say, no, it took Presti, it took the right coaching, it took the right guys, it took Chet, took everything around him? Or do you look at it and say, no, he was destined to be an MVP in the NBA if the Clippers would have just waited for 6 years?
That's a really good question because I don't think it's universal, but I think in his case he was on this path. Like the work ethic and all that and the skill was all there. They were really high on him. That was the guy Doc Rivers. I mean, he now sells it like, sells it in the I wouldn't have drafted Greg Oden. I would have drafted Kevin Durant sense. That's not true. but to his credit, off the record and on the record at the time, he was like, I don't want to I really don't like giving up Shai. I think Shai's going to be really special. And even he didn't really see MVP. He thought he'd be all-star, borderline all-NBA kind of guy. So I don't think anybody saw this. I think he did this a lot on his own because he's got that drive. I think the advantage he's got not being with a team like the Clippers is the Clippers still would have had – they still would have gone after Harden. They still would have had Kawhi. They still would have gone after names. And I don't know that he would have gotten the runway to develop in Los Angeles the way he would have in Oklahoma City or where I think that's the advantage for a place like Utah. You've got some runway where if you've got a good young core, you can let them build together. You can see what, you can be in Orlando and see what it does and see what you need in a few years once you get your Paolo and your Fonz.
I remember we've been doing these conversations for a long time, and I remember chatting with you in regards to Chet Holmgren and felt like this guy could get a entire front office fired, meaning that you draft him and his body breaks down and you get fired because you drafted him, or you don't draft him and he becomes a superstar and you get fired because you didn't draft him. Now, granted, obviously he's taken a back seat to a superstar there, but his development really seems like it's been special as to the kind of player he's developed into. Yeah,
he has absolutely. The concern was injuries, right? Like the skill level was there, but it was like, is he going to hold up? I guess that still holds out. I mean, he certainly had injury issues, but he looked so good. And it's him go Towns, or not Towns, at bigs in this, in the playoffs, not fearing going at guys. And I can go behind the back. I can do all this. I can hit a three, but I'm a little tougher inside than you think I am, and a little more physical than you think I am. And he can't push everybody around, but he's done incredibly well on that front, hasn't he? Like, I love the fearlessness. I love the fearlessness which he plays.
Well, Kurt, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us as always, and look forward to catch up again soon. Again, apologies that we will not be talking, most likely we will not be talking to you live from New York, but hey, you know what? Indianapolis is, never mind. I can't.
Yeah,
I tried.
Well, I'm going to go to New York and try to audition for Colin Jost's job at Saturday Night Live anyway. See how that goes.
There you go. There's a guy who's winning at life, by the way.
Yeah, he's doing okay. I love my wife. I would never, but he's doing all right. He's done okay with himself.
He's done just fine. Hey, thanks, Kurt. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
See you, Kurt.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports, ProBasketballTalk.com.
Oh, I hope he's right about Danny Ainge. Danny does love to be involved. And if some big things break this offseason, just let it be the Jazz, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Let him be involved.
Look, Danny, I don't know if there's a guy that has a serious case of NBA FOMO more than Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
And so I got to imagine that if there's a party involved, he's going to want to be there.
Well, see, I've been thinking about this a little bit more ever since we went over the Paul George trade that led to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what we're seeing now with Oklahoma City. And I keep thinking to myself, at some point we got to be able to look at that Donovan Mitchell trade and say, oh, it turned into this.
Yeah.
Or the Rudy Gobert trade and say, oh, it turned into this. Because remember, when those deals were made, the conversation was Danny raked him over the coals. It's not looking that way now.
No. Yeah.
He had some real postseason success. Cleveland had the best record in the East. Rudy still has a chance to come back from 3-1 in a Western Conference Finals appearance. And it's like, okay, well, at some point, that trade has got to look good. And, drafting 3 rookies year in and year out and watching those guys be okay. Keontae Georges.
Is there anybody?
Taylor Hendricks.
Is there anybody on the Jazz roster you look at right now like, ooh, he's turning into something?
No.
Like, you've got solid developing role players, but there's nobody in there that's got star potential.
I'm going to look really stupid for saying this, I think, in the long run. But if you forced my hand at one of the 7 that have been acquired over the last 3 years, then I would say Isaiah Collier. That would be my go-to. If there's one that's going to become something, like that could be a part of a 3-headed monster, it'd be Isaiah Collier at this point. But I haven't seen enough Taylor Hendricks because of the most unfortunate injury at the worst time possible for Utah Jazz fans and the Utah Jazz. But if you forced my hand, I'd say Collier, and I'd say Phil Pawski, probably number 2.
Hans and Scotty Timms with us, RGS Exteriors, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to saddle up and talk about the winners and the losers. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, here's the good.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for your good, time for your bad, time for your ugly. All right, Hans, I'm going to start with the good. I'm doing a little bit of a audible from the doc here because I saw this stat pop up. Tyrese Halliburton last night had himself a day. Now, there's, obviously we know the numbers, but when you look at what he was able to do last night and put it in a little bit of perspective. So he ends up with a triple-double, and he also with let's see here, 30
triple-double.
32 points, 15 assists, and 12 rebounds. Yep. So the nerds out there went to work on this, and they charted every pass that he made in that game last night. And they charted out the yardage. All right? They say Tyrese Halliburton threw 77 passes in that game last night. So whether it was a cross-court pass or a pass that led to a bucket, he passed the ball 77 times in that game. And was charted for 444 yards in that passing. So if you go and put that next to NFL quarterbacks in a playoff game, that's 3rd in NFL history.
That's crazy.
Tom Brady has the most yards in a game against the Eagles for 505 yards. Drew Brees, 468 against the Lions in a playoff game. And then Tyrese Halliburton, 77 passes for 444 yards ahead of Kurt Warner, who had 414 yards in a Super Bowl.
That's funny. Well, I wonder what the average is.
I know. That's the other thing. I would like to base this against something else.
Yeah, I need a reference
to see exactly what else is out there. But
it's like for the SGA fouls, I had to go back and figure out just how significant this playoff run is for SGA and how many foul line shots he's made. And when you put it in historical context, it's just not that impressive.
But how about this, though? He did not throw, or he did not turn the ball over.
Now, that's incredible.
Essentially what you're saying is he threw for 444 yards on 77 attempts without throwing an interception.
Yeah, that's incredible. What was crazy, too, he ended up with 4 steals. But what's crazy is what he's doing defensively while he's putting on this offensive performance, whether he's pulling down 12 defensive boards, because every one of his 12 rebounds was a defensive board, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And you look at what he does in positioning and fighting. He's fighting for something bigger than just a win.
Yeah.
I honestly feel that. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show where his peers voted him the most overrated player in the NBA. He was number 1, wasn't he? On the vote?
Absolutely.
His peers voted him number 1. Now, that might only be 18 guys in the NBA that actually placed a vote. We don't know. We don't know who voted. We don't know how many voted. We just know that players in the NBA voted Tyrese Haliburton as the most overrated player in the NBA. I'm watching a guy that's trying to fight and buck all of that trend.
Yeah. He's
trying to get the American native or narrative to fight against it and say, no. That guy's not overrated. He's underrated. Look at what he's doing, a triple-double, which involved 32 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists. He threw on 4 steals. I think he's fighting a narrative.
I think you're spot on that
and trying to rebuild the perception. And I also think he was embarrassed by his dad.
Did you hear about that? It's reversed. Dad was at the game last night.
So they finally let Dad back in the arena.
There's a quote, and Lloyd, I don't know if you can find it, but Tyrese Haliburton actually had a funny quote after the game where everybody's like, everybody was on Twitter saying free Dad or free Pops and stuff like that. He's like, Dad was fine. Dad's living in a very nice house. Dad's watching the games on a very nice TV, on a very comfortable couch. Don't feel bad for Pops. He was fine.
Yeah, he'll make it.
In fact, here's that line from last night. This was funny.
I'm wondering if what went on with him, if that was tough for you, and just if there were some emotions about having him back in here tonight.
Emotions, no. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys here. Like, my dad is just fine. Like, he lives just fine. He's at the house watching the game in a beautiful home, or he's finds his way in some sports bar with a bunch of Pacer fans. My dad is doing just fine. I think there was obviously a lot of commentary around him, especially right after, which I think some was warranted. Some went a little too far, but I mean, that's just sports. That's just sports, and that's just talking heads. What can you really do? But I don't think there's really any emotion to it. I just wanted to put on a good performance. I want to win the game. Obviously my dad being here is special. But I mean, growing up, like, my dad was reffing a lot on the weekend, so he didn't get to come to many of my games growing up. So when he would come to my game, I want to play well. So with him.
But yeah, he's like, Pops is fine.
Yeah,
don't worry about him.
Well, he's fine unless he has another episode.
And then he's going to be sitting out for a long time.
Well, Pops is fine, but that was embarrassing.
That was really embarrassing, and you can tell he was embarrassed by it. And then also, but he's also the guy's dad, or his son, so he's going to stick up for him.
Darn right.
And he's going to be like, was some of it warranted? Yes. Did some of it go over the top? Yes. So, he's got to walk both sides of that a little bit.
He will forgive Dad way before America.
Oh, yeah. But also, I do think there was a pretty nice conversation there. Like, Dad, we're going to get you back at the games, but you plant your big old butt on that chair when that game's over, and you don't cause me any problems at all.
And when you come back to the games, leave that towel with my face on it. Leave that at home.
Leave that at home. That's not doing anybody any good.
Unbelievable.
All right, there's your good. Let's get to the bad.
Now the bad.
Good, the bad, the ugly here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Oh, man, I wish I hadn't done this. I'm just doing stuff to try to get emotions out of you, and I'm sorry.
Well, this one gets me.
This morning when I put this on there, I'm like, I should probably replace that, and then I never got around to replacing it. The WNBA announced Tuesday that it could not substantiate a report of racist fan behavior in the Indiana-Chicago game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis earlier this month. This is what the league said. We've investigated the report of a racist fan behavior in the vicinity of the court on May 17th based on information gathered to date, including from relevant fans, team, and arena staff, as well as audio and video review of the game. We could not substantiate it. Now, again, neither team after the game mention any bit of this. Now, this was part of that Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark dust-up, and neither team nor any player publicly said anything. And then all of a sudden there was this big announcement of this investigation, and everybody was like, yeah, we support investigation. But Angel Reese was asked earlier if she was able to provide the WNBA with details about the incident, but she did not offer any specifics on if she had done so or not. She did not also reveal what kind of comments were made or any specifics that prompted the investigation. So, again, there was this big hubbub like, oh, somebody said something racist, and then you go back and look, and it's like, no, actually, that did not happen. Because let me tell you this. If you think for a moment that a NBA arena, now this happened at the home of the Indiana Pacers, I have been privy to a little bit, just the tip of the iceberg on what these arenas now are doing in terms of having mics available to be able to find out what people are saying. If there is derogatory statements, if there are racist statements, if there is a fan behaving badly, there are so many cameras and audio devices throughout the arena that you do not see, that you do not know are there. If you do something bad, they're going to find it. So trust me on this one. The investigation, if they didn't find anything, nothing happened.
It wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
This is a shame. And, these false claims of racism are horrible.
Yes.
And we saw it come down on BYU. And that was a really tough one. Was it Duke? Who was it?
It was, I think it was Duke, wasn't it?
And I can't remember. Was it volleyball?
It was volleyball. I knew that. It was volleyball.
And it led to people canceling games.
Yeah.
I would say
South Carolina canceled their women's basketball game.
Yeah. So it's such a horrible look. And what sucks is there's no repercussion.
No.
If there's a false claim, there's got to be a repercussion, just like a false claim of anything. Because guess what? If we found something, somebody would be in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
They would be publicly humiliated. They would probably lose their job. Ultimately, it would be horrific for that individual.
Yeah.
And there's a false claim, which led to an investigation of a fan base that didn't deserve it.
No.
And still sits in humiliation because you can't remove it. Whether they did or didn't find anything in this small little release that will go away inside of a day, the damage is done. And it's like, geez, man, how about we really get to the base of these things? And before we make those kinds of accusations, there's something substantiated. Like 4 players were like, yeah, they were sitting right behind us.
Yeah.
We heard them, and it was horrible. But nobody substantiated and nobody cooperated. Nobody came together and was like, we got to find this perp. We got to get it taken care of. And it's just crazy to me, man. The other thing that's crazy to me is the WNBA has supercharged our nation with racism and sexism and every other kind of ism. The WNBA. I don't know how they've done it, but they've done it. They've driven it to the forefront. And I don't know if it's their effort to be relevant or seen. I don't know if our country can't handle it, can't deal with it. I don't know what it is. But when you talk about the WNBA, we're hardly talking about how good they are. We're hardly talking about basketball. We're talking about everything that surrounds it.
We're talking Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. All right, 150 Whole World News coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to span the globe for the hard-hitting news you care about. Well, not really. But hey, at least we found it interesting. This is Whole World News on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We've got the whole world in our hands.
You got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands.
Hands and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, by the way, it's a Wednesday, which means we're giving away tickets. Call number 12, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace coming up on Saturday, September 27th at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater.
So, Scotty, I'm an auction addict. I love the auction.
Yes.
I used to love to go to the auction. There was an Idaho auction I'd go to every single Saturday. And I would just buy mystery boxes. They'd have a box, and you could just bid on the box, $20. One time I bid on a box, and it was just a box full of scissors. One time I bid on a bin, and it was a bin full of old WWE figurines.
Oh, wow.
Which was really cool. So I love the auction. I always pay attention to some of these major auctions. They just had a major auction for Abraham Lincoln memorabilia. Now, this was an auction. It was 144 items that belonged to Abraham Lincoln. 2 of the items, a handkerchief and a pair of gloves, were on his person when he was assassinated. Both of them got his blood on them. but more so the gloves. The gloves are a leather fitted made glove for Abraham Lincoln, and they were in his pockets when he was shot and killed. Take a guess on what those gloves just sold for at auction.
$350,000.
North.
5.
North.
Did we break a mill?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. $1.5 million.
No kidding.
For those Abraham Lincoln gloves.
Wow.
And it's got the blood still stained on them. It's a white leather. They're beautiful gloves. It's a white leather glove, and it still has.
Can we go Jurassic Park and clone Abraham Lincoln?
I wish we could. There's very few people that from history that I'd love to sit down with. Abraham Lincoln's one of them.
Abe's got a story, man.
Yeah,
he was through some stuff.
He's one of them. I'd love to sit down with him and just say, so how do you become the greatest man in world history? How does that happen? Where did that start for you? Where did you identify your cause and your leadership and your direction? I would love to talk to that man. So, with that being said, I'm cheap. If, let's just say I was a 25 millionaire.
Yeah.
Let's say I had 1.5 million.
You're not Bezos, but you're living comfortably.
I'm living very comfortably, and I can spend my money the way I want to spend my money. I'd have forked out 100 or 1.5 million.
Wow.
I would love to have those gloves in my home.
Okay. How long before you try to put your big mitts in those things, though?
All of 2 days. Yeah. Because I'd have to wear them to work and be guess whose gloves these are?
See that blood?
These are Abe's. And I'd just brag to everybody. And then, of course, my wife would throw them into the washer.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be I was like, those are Abe's gloves. You washed them?
That's $1.5 million.
No. Oh, and then I'd have to put fake blood back on.
Oh, yeah.
And be those were Abe's. But I want those gloves. What did I tell you? Now, I've been to every museum in the country.
Yeah.
What did I tell you is the coolest thing I've ever seen in a museum?
Abraham Lincoln
chair,
yes.
That he was assassinated in, right?
Yep.
I've said that.
You have said that.
The coolest thing I've ever seen in a museum. Abraham Lincoln's chair that he was assassinated in Ford Theater. And it's in the Ford Museum in Michigan, and it's probably the coolest. And, by the way, the car that John F. Kennedy was driving in and assassinated in was in the same museum. I still think the Abe chair is better.
Wow. Hans and Scotty right here on The Zone.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah. We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you're all having a tremendous day. Hey, guess what? Hans and I want to go to work for you. Do you have something you're passionate about and would like to have it endorsed by us? Well, it's simple. All you have to do is text HANS, H-A-N-S, HANS to 57500, and our sales staff will take care of the rest. Again, text HANS, H-A-N-S, H-A-N-S, to 57500. Not H-A-W-N-S, not Hans. No, HANS, H-A-N-S, to 57500.
Please don't do Hans.
No.
Please. If you do, that's a bummer, because nobody's going to contact you. Nobody's going to get back to you. Which, by the way, I just saw a PRF come through for us.
Oh, yeah?
At a barbecue joint.
Really?
Yeah. You and I are going to be headed out and endorsing a barbecue joint. I'd never heard the name of it. But we're going to be eating some barbecue and talking about the world of barbecue.
Let's go.
But if you do have a product that you'd like Scotty and I to pitch, we're here for you.
Hans to 57500.
Just text it, not Hans.
Nope, not going to go for you. All right, joining us now, one of our favorites, breaking down the world of college football. Never an off season when it comes to the college football world and landscape. Bryan Fischer, kind enough to join us. Bryan, how you doing?
Hey, Bryan.
Good to be on with you guys. Yeah, staying busy. It seems like it would be a downtime on the calendar, but college football, college athletics in general, it always has a way of pulling us back in with news and notes and everything going on.
Who's the driving force of the SEC? Is it Greg Sankey driving the SEC, or a lot of presidents and athletic directors driving Greg Sankey?
I think, in general, there's a push and a pull to a lot of that, especially on different subjects. And, let's face it, anytime you have 16 schools, 16 very different personalities in the case of some of the athletic directors that are, obviously have a lot of power at a lot of these big programs, there is a bit of a push and a pull. And although I think, Greg Sankey is the loudest voice in the room, the most consistent voice in the room, if you will. It could change depending on the whims of the schools themselves in terms of ultimately what they want and what they're pushing for. And I think that's not only become very apparent this week as SEC meetings are taking place there in Destin. I think that's kind of the case, with their counterparts up in the Big Ten, and I think across a couple of these conferences, just in terms of building consensus nowadays in college athletics, outside of maybe everybody wanting this House settlement to pass, it's pretty difficult, to find some common ground, just given everybody's interest and what they're looking to do.
Well, what they're looking to do is very interesting, Bryan. And, there's always rumors that come out of these conference meetings, and it does feel like the SEC is growing more and more impatient and wanting to be more and more exclusive. What are you taking away from some of these early conference meeting conversations?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the impatience. I mean, that definitely has been, I think, kind of spilling out into the open. I think there was certainly some quiet seething on some of the commissioners' parts about, not reaching the consensus at this point, and things taking so long, especially with regards to the college football playoff. And, I think the media session that Greg Sankey had a couple of days ago, I mean, that really was apparent that, he was getting fed up with things. And frankly, he's not alone. I think there is, very much a realization amongst the commissioners, amongst those that are pretty plugged in on the matter that, we should have had a decision made on the college football playoff, a year ago. I think it's crazy in a lot of people's minds. I mean, I think some of the CFP staff have gotten a few more additional gray hairs over the fact that we just now got the kind of agreement to do straight seeding for the upcoming season. And I think everybody at this point wanted some clarity going into a lot of these spring meetings where you do have everybody kind of coming in. You can have that rapport with everybody. You can have these discussions come out in the open about a lot of these big picture ideas. And frankly, everybody's in a holding pattern now. And that's not any way where you can move forward as a conference. Nobody really likes to do these kind of big picture things over Zoom and having those type of meetings throughout the season. And you kind of want to make a decision and move forward with it. And that hasn't been the case with a lot of these big picture ideas. And so I think there is definitely a lot of people saying, all right, let's come on, let's get past it. Let's reach a decision. Let's get there. But, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of competing interest, and that's really leading to this kind of gridlock we're seeing in college athletics right now.
If you're a member of the ACC or the Big 12, how nervous are you right now?
Oh, no, I don't know if I would quite say nervous, but I think there's definitely some resentment that has continued to brew. I think it does kind of going back last year in terms of the agreements with surrounding the college football playoff and where we were and kind of handing over, kind of future control of the playoff in exchange for, still being there at the table. And, frankly, people are starting to look back at that decision to hand things over to the Big Ten and the SEC and regretting it right now. I think there is a bit of a buyer's remorse in terms of, yes, we've kind of kept the college football ecosystem, if you will, still in the same tent, the same big tent. But at this point, if there's only two conferences driving the bus, how nice is it for everybody else to still be in that tent? And so, that has bubbled to the surface. And I think, you could probably have seen that coming if you were looking at it objectively last year and seeing these potential issues pop up down the road. But obviously decisions were made in real time last year, and that didn't end up being the case. And I think it has definitely led to some friction. We'll put it that way. And I think that's starting to come out a little bit more in the public sphere nowadays than maybe it has been kind of on the undercurrent and in private conversations in these past few months.
How significant are these college football playoff changes in regards to the top four seeds now being, your top 4 highest ranked instead of your 4 conference champions. How significant is that change, Bryan?
Well, I think it's significant for, especially the Big 12 and the SEC, in their conference title games, because, I think there was a sense, talking with, folks at Texas, folks at Oregon, that they almost felt like they were punished to some extent in terms of playing those conference title games, playing that extra game, playing that extra weekend, and then and certainly in the case of Texas, having to go right into a first round playoff game, versus I think there is a general viewpoint that with straight seeding they can still make that SEC title game and end up getting the bye, even if they were to lose that game and still remain in the top 4. So that's I think some incentive, some additional incentive to do well in those Power 2 conference title games. And frankly, I think it's still good news if you're out there, if you're a Clemson of the world, and you're not only looking at contending within in the ACC and making a national title run, but now you understand that going into the ACC tournament, ACC championship game, it's not just about, oh, hey, we can get into the playoff, we can get that automatic qualifier, but it's also like we can earn our way into that top 4 bid as well, and it doesn't have to just be a Big 10 or SEC party. So it's really contingent on some of those teams, I think, and come that first weekend in December, not just to win these title games, but to win them big and make that big impression with the committee, so you can get up into that top 4, not just host a playoff game, but ideally get a bye. And I think a lot of you talk with a lot of coaches, I think after the fact, they did come to realize that that extra time off, although it didn't play out in terms of the results, when you talked with their players, that they could definitely feel that it was a little bit better for them in terms of just getting healthy as a team. And I think it's always difficult to chatter about such a small sample size of just 1 year of the 12-teamer, but I think everybody does kind of understand that by moving to straight seeding, it rewards those teams that do have those really good years, that make it to the conference title games, maybe even if they lost, but also sets up some better matchups down the road. And I think that's what, whether you're ESPN or the teams themselves, that's what everybody wants, those better matchups come December, so we don't get kind of the blowouts that we did during that first round of the 12-teamer CFP.
So at this point, are we just waiting for the white smoke to come out of a judge's office on the House settlement? What are we waiting on that?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Everybody is definitely waiting on that white smoke, and frankly, if you have we should have started taking bets. I think amongst those of us that are not only following this case closely, but in college athletics, because frankly, that July 1st deadline, where a lot of the rules are supposed to change, a lot of the revenue sharing payments and whatnot are supposed to start, even the clearinghouse that's part of the House settlement. I mean, all that's supposed to kind of magically flip on July 1st, and that date is not moving. It is only getting closer, and for a lot of folks, that has led to some angst, especially amongst the administrator ranks in terms of, all right, well, how are we going to put in these plans and whatnot in a few short weeks' time? And you can plan as much as you want, but until you know those final numbers, until you know some of that final language that is surrounding a lot of this stuff, you never really want to commit to doing something. So I think it's definitely the most anticipated decision of the year, even beyond some of the selection committee decisions that we've seen this past season. So a lot of people waiting with bated breath, and I think there is some hope that maybe that smoke will come either towards the end of this week. I think everybody did look at post Memorial Day being a possible time frame for Judge Wilkin to rule, and the longer it drags out, though, I think that the more nervous people are going to get in terms of, all right, well, what is this ultimately going to look like? Are there going to be changes? Are there going to be tweaks that they're going to have to deal with in a very short time frame?
So, Bryan, Scotty and I were just talking about this a little bit earlier, and in that conversation during the break, I texted a major D1 coach in a Power 4 conference and asked him, are you expecting it still to be 105? And he quickly responded with yes. So it feels like even without the judgment, and it feels like even with some speculation and possibility in the future, it feels, according to him, like everybody's still expecting to move forward with the 105-player limit, which there's still teams that are going to have to cut between 20 and 30 players. A lot of teams have already started cutting here in the state specifically. We've seen a lot of cuts, but it feels like they're still expecting the 105. Is that what you're expecting?
Well, obviously there has been some recent changes being made to that overall 105 number in terms of grandfathering in a lot of those roster spots, and I think certainly more impactful on the Olympic sports that are going from 40 or 50 swimmers that might be on a school's team to down well beyond below that, and so I think there is certainly a anticipation that this is going to be a bit of a rocky transition, and especially given the late language surrounding the grandfathering of a lot of those roster spots. There's no doubt in my mind that eventually that hard cap, that number of 105 is going to be set, especially in the sport of football. And I think you do talk with a lot of coaches. They are kind of operating under that assumption. There is kind of the hope that in cases like Nebraska and others with those big walk-on programs, they can be a part of that grandfather language, and they can kind of slowly work their way down to that. But if you were to even give a lot of those coaches some truth serum, I think they would ultimately understand that 105 spots is still more than enough, not only to have your program, but I think they are more and more coaches are understanding that playing time is such a driver now for a lot of these kids that it's going to be difficult. It's difficult enough to keep 85 guys happy on a roster going into a season or even throughout the season. It's going to be even more difficult to keep 105 guys bought in and ready to play and hopefully pulling in the same direction for a lot of these programs. So going to be a lot of interesting decisions, certainly, with those roster limits coming forward. And I think there's no doubt for a lot of people that they are planning with that 105 figure in mind. And, whether they're ultimately hitting it, this upcoming season or whether it's 2026 or thereabouts, there's going to be some tweaks and some changes. And those that roll with the punches are definitely going to be better positioned versus those that are going to try to kind of fight this and push back on it as much as they can.
Bryan Fischer joining us right here on 97.5. The KSL Sports Zone is, again, no offseason whatsoever when it comes to college football. But we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us, and look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Thanks, Bryan.
Absolutely great to be on with you guys.
Good stuff. Bryan Fischer, Sports Illustrated, college football writer, one of the best.
These SEC conference meetings always make me nervous.
I cannot stand the SEC, man.
Yeah, because when they go to a place where they can all get together and they all start chirping and complaining and, well, I can't even believe we're doing this again, and why it just
drinking their brandy, smoking their cigars.
Yeah. This is what it is. It's like when you see all the NBA players come together for the Olympics and you've got the world's best NBA players, and they're all like, well, what are your plans? Well, I'm just sick of being in the middle of nowhere doing nothing. Well, why don't you come over here? Let's get this together. And they start making plans behind closed doors. And then the next thing you know, there's a big move or a trade or somebody's not the same player and they don't treat people the same way. And they're all of a sudden different and acting different. And you don't know who they are and what's going on. And you're like, well, I don't want those guys going off together, because they're not the same when they come back. That's how the SEC is during these conference media days. Or not media days, but their conference meetings.
I had a boss, a former boss, that, this was several management groups away, that I was always like, hey, we're trying to get the staff together for a little summer party or something like that. He's like, nope. I'm like, why? He's like, whenever all you guys get together, then you start talking, and then we got to talk about this, or you guys do your collective bargaining again, and we got problems. So I'm not sponsoring anything where you guys get together. I'm like, okay.
There's no truth to that. When we all get together, we walk away hating each other.
Yeah, I'm like, well, the guys really don't like Hans that much, so
Hans ate all the mac and cheese.
I'm just joking.
Hans took a third helping of the cheesecake. I guess Hans rubbed people the wrong way. Amanda yelled at Gordon again.
Oh, man, I would have paid good money to be there for that.
Oh, it was uncomfortable.
When she pulls out the mama hen
Yeah.
claws, man. Watch out.
Yeah. She went at Gordon. And they got it straightened out. And they became decent friends afterwards.
So you're saying that Mama Hen has large talons?
But Amanda did love Lisa.
Yeah. Oh, Lisa's one of the best human beings on the planet.
Yeah.
Only thing that she has an issue with is her choice in men. Other than that, she's about as perfect of a human being as you'll ever meet.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm kidding.
But when we get together, it's always interesting.
All right, Hans and Scotty right here on the Zone.
The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Look what somebody's sending me pictures of.
Well, that's a that's a breakdown. That's a under the seat storage fly rod.
Yeah.
What is that running you? 220?
That one's 429.
Oh yeah, must be a Loomis.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's a great rod.
Yeah.
Lifetime warranty.
Somebody caught the bug.
If you reel the tip of that thing up in the window and it breaks, they'll send you
even if it's your fault.
Either a new blank or yeah.
Oh, did you say Loomis?
Yeah.
It's an Orbis.
Oh, I love Orvis.
Yeah.
I love Orvis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where does the Sage rank?
That's all I have, Sage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, the two fly rods I got are both Sage.
Yeah.
But what weight is that?
Hold on.
You're going to want a 5.6 probably. You're going to be due more like
say 6 weight.
Yeah, so that's
9 foot, 6 weight.
That's a pretty decent rod for you on the Provo.
And the cool thing is, Scotty, you
I'd
can
go
out and practice with that line in your backyard. You got plenty of space back there.
I say let's go.
Stop it. You're not helping.
Let's go, man.
You're not helping. You should have nipped this in the bud before we went out there and said, don't do it.
No, I said do it. Just understand it's going to be an addiction. But this is what I would suggest, because this is what I did with ice fishing.
Yeah.
It was an initial $2,000 investment to gear up. The tent, the heaters, the rods, the reels. It was about a $2,000 investment. And then, with ice fishing, it's only about $20 to $30. That's gas, worms, to get up there to the lake and maybe a little bit of snack here and there.
Yeah.
With fly, it's going to be $45 to $65 every
trip.
But it'll be an initial $2,200 investment. Waders, wading boots.
Yep.
The fly vest, because you got to have the vest that you keep all your different flies in. The flies, the tippets, the rods, the reels. Get it. It's a $2,500 investment, and you won't regret it. I know from experience.
Well, I
don't regret building a hobby with myself.
Those waist packs, by the way, are like, those waist packs I'm talking about, Hans? Those things are like $300.
Oh. And don't go with the name brand. Just go with the generic. Generic will be just fine. The name brands are all tight. And yeah, they got the lifetime warranties, and yeah, they look a lot better. But just get a generic.
All right, so if there's
Mountain Tech will work.
Yeah. If there's one thing that I need to not go cheap on, is it the rod?
It's a rod. Yeah, because the action in the rod is a lot of the enjoyment experience of fly. That's why I would go with a lighter weight. I went with a 6 on my Sage, but I wish I would have gone a little bit lighter weight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's just more action. And we're in streams where the biggest trout you're going to hook into is probably 24-inch brown. That'll be the hardest fighting. You get it into the wrong current, and you could have a real problem, but I would go lighter weight pole that gives you more action, that you have a little bit more action with your casting, because the type of pole that you get, you'll be able to cast easier, more smooth. And if you're doing dry flies, you want a nice cast, something that rolls the barrel out perfectly and displays the top fly perfectly. So let's go. Make the investment. Make some memories.
Well, I'll tell you what, we had a core memory on Saturday. That was a blast. So if I can create more of those, you can't really put a price tag on that.
Yeah, Ryan's great, man.
Yeah, he really is. All right, Hans and Scotty, let's get to it. Time for Sports Roulette. We take some of the big storylines, put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it. Wherever that little ball lands is what we end up talking about. So, Lloyd, with that, let's go.
Yo, that's my teammate.
Every once in a while, I'll be reading a story, and I'm reading this story about Keyshawn Johnson. And I'm like, Keyshawn Johnson, he's suing an NFL agent for $1 million because he told this NFL agent, I'll funnel players your way, but I want 1/3 of the 3% that you're making, which is ridiculous, which would amount to $962,335. And I'm like, this blowhard. I'm not a Keyshawn guy.
No.
I just think he's all kinds of obnoxious. And then I'm reading it. I'm like, NFL agent Chris Ellison. So I grab a screen grab of the picture, and I send the story to 3 or 4 of my old BYU teammates. I was like, is this our Chris? That's a former BYU Cougar defensive back, Chris Ellison, that was, he was integral in that 96 season. He was kind of one of the defensive team leaders in that 96 run to the Cotton Bowl.
And Keyshawn Johnson's suing him.
Is suing him for $1 million. That is our Chris Ellison. And by the way, this is Keyshawn. This isn't Chris. Chris is one of the best dudes I've ever met in my life.
Did you even know he was an agent?
No, I had no idea. No clue. But I would send rock to him tomorrow because Chris is just that kind of dude. Now, Chris is very business-oriented, and he's all business, very serious. But I promise you that if Keyshawn worked a contract with Chris and was like, Chris, 1/3, sign it on the contract, and Chris signed his name on the contract, Chris would have been funneling him the $962,000. But this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Keyshawn Johnson needs a single penny in his life. What does this come down to? Is it greed?
Yeah.
Did Chris Ellison do something wrong? Like,
I bet
didn't sign a player that Keyshawn wanted with a certain team, or I don't know.
Well, or there was just an offhanded conversation where he's like, "Hey, you know what? If I got you these guys, could we work?" And Chris may have been like, "Yeah, let's sit down and talk about it sometime." And Keyshawn came away with that, like, "Bam, we got ourselves a deal."
Yeah.
And Chris is like, "We never signed anything."
Well, if Keyshawn Johnson is filing a $1 million lawsuit, and he's putting time and effort into attorney fees and putting his name on this because it looks so petty from a guy like Keyshawn.
Yeah, especially when it's less than $1 million. I mean, I know 960 pretty much is $1 million, but that's.
But to me, it feels like it's something petty. Like, I'm going to get you. I don't care. I'm not. This isn't about the money. I'm just going to get you. I'm going to sink you.
Yeah. Run your name into the ground.
I gave you 4 guys. I funneled you 4 guys. I told you I want them with Pittsburgh. I want them at Indy. You ended up getting free agent deals at this, and you did. I'll get you, whatever it is. I could just see Keyshawn Johnson being so vindictive.
Yeah. All right, Hans and Scotty. Go ahead, Lloyd, spin it.
Nine years ago today. Never forget.
Sad. Now, this is not sports related, and I thought about working it a little bit into whole world news, but Hans, we lost somebody very special to the show. Sorry, I can't even say it with a straight face. Harambe, 9 years ago today.
Oh my gosh, that's really?
Yep.
They torched the gorilla.
Yep. Back 9 years ago today, that kid that had no parental oversight whatsoever sneaked into the gorilla facility there at the Cincinnati Zoo, and Harambe took a liking to the kid, drug him around a little bit, and boom.
Did he kill the kid?
No, the kid's fine. Kid got dragged around a little bit.
Did they ever give a reason as to why they opened up fire on Harambe?
Just that the kid was there Harambe was there, and they were worried about the kids, so they start sky blasting our king.
Tell me somebody is in prison for this.
Oh, no way.
What kind of country are we?
I know.
We don't have rights for gorillas.
Justice for Harambe.
This should be more about the parent than Harambe.
I agree. See, that's where I know people are getting mad at the zoo for shooting him, but you got to protect the kid. So who should be blamed for this? Not the guy, certainly not Harambe. Not the guy who had to shoot it because he frankly was doing his job, had no choice. It's the parent for not paying attention to their dopey kid. Of course the kid's going to try to climb into the enclosure. He thinks it's cool.
This is why we can't get close to these zoo animals anymore because of stupidity like this. You know, there was a time back in the old Willow Zoo times. Was Willow Park?
Willow Park
in Logan.
Yeah.
The Willow Park in Logan, man, you could get within 2 feet of that vulture.
Oh yeah, no, there was
turkey vulture.
Yeah, there was no separation between you and the zoo animals there at Willow Park.
You could snuggle up to them. They had 2 bears. You remember the 2 bears?
Yeah.
They had a grizzly bear and a black bear that hung in these separate cement. That had to have been like 130 degrees in the summer. I
had a roommate in college that his job was working at the zoo, and his primary job was there would be roadkill, and the I don't know, UDOT or whoever would bring in the roadkill, and he'd quarter it up and then feed it to the zoo animals.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be fun.
And we'd go out and hang out with him and feed the bears the roadkill, and watching the bears just completely obliterate some deer.
A half quarter of a deer.
And that was impressive to watch.
Yeah.
They'd get after it.
Is it violent?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're incredible creatures. Much more incredible than a parent that lets their kid wander off in a zoo environment. Like, you know, there are some dangerous animals in a zoo. You might want to watch your kid.
You would think.
And I know I've got parents out there, well, sometimes your kids run away. Okay, if you got kids that are running away and you got too many to keep a track of, then don't take them to the zoo.
Don't take them to the zoo.
Because you're just ruining everybody else's time, and you're getting animals killed, shot.
Imagine Scotty's got the family in Bear World with those sedated bears.
And he just
lets Scotty just lets Brody just run loose.
Brody's riding a bear. And Scotty goes to the park ranger. But that bear, my son's riding a bear in the park ranger.
Bless that bear.
Guns down the bear.
I know. And who's to blame? It should be me.
It would be you.
It would be me.
Oh, I'd be so mad at you. Like, you and I could overcome a lot. I don't know if I could overcome that. Like, I'd be like, so you told on the bear?
Well, my kid was on top of it.
Yeah, but you don't tell on a bear.
I don't care how drugged up that bear was.
Oh, those bears
Brody was never safe.
Those bears are crazy drugged up in Bear World.
Well, I will tell you, I got a behind-the-scenes view of a zoo in Michigan. When I was with the Colts, my best friend was a University of Michigan player, a teammate there, and he had access in a zoo. And so I got to go behind the scenes. Remember, I got to play with that baby camel.
Oh, that's right.
That baby camel kicked me and nearly broke my leg. And I didn't go to the zookeeper and be like, that baby camel kicked me, kill it.
Kill it.
I'm going to sue you unless you kill that baby camel.
No, and didn't you get something spray you?
Yeah, no, that was
So you got kicked by a camel. You got stung by a stingray.
That was at Siegfried and Jensen's.
Siegfried and Roy's.
I was at it. Wild zoo animals in Vegas. That was my honeymoon. And I was over there checking out Siegfried and Jensen's Roy's tigers. And this tiger, the big, giant white tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Turns.
Did that one end up eating Roy?
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
One of them got one of them.
Sounds like Roy needs to call Siegfried and Jensen.
Yeah, exactly.
And this massive tiger turns and like fire hose sprays this stinky junk like 20 feet across all of us, and we're like, that stinks. And apparently we were all his at that point. Like he marked us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like
I own all you.
Yeah.
Y'all smell like me now.
You're my, okay, yeah.
I couldn't believe how far he sprayed that stink, too. It was horrible.
Man, for a guy who loves animals, you had some rough experiences.
It smelled like death warmed over. But it was a...
Was it urine? Or was it like a special, like...
It's a marker that tigers will spray.
Really?
Yeah, to tell other tigers, like, you don't want to come around here, I'll eat you.
Because I'm going to eat them, and you don't get to eat them. I get to eat them.
But what was nice is I walked around the other tiger enclosures and was like, I got protection, man. You got a problem with me.
You go talk to Tony Soprano over there.
Go talk to the dude that ate Roy. You got a bone to pick? It's freaking – you go pick it with Roy's death maker.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up next, we'll wrap up this bad boy. Get you ready for JJ and Alex.